What's that blurriness? Let's wipe that off. That's odd. Hope you guys aren't seeing this. Water. All right, let's go. Thank you, sir. Good, how are you? Good. Good to hear. Oh, sitting in my seat. Oh, I can change. Am I blocking your view if I put this here?
Block my view.
Right there? Blocks your view?
Yeah, block
Okay.
my view. Yeah.
All right then.
Put it on this side. How you doing today?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
All right. Seems like you just did this.
Oh yeah. Can I ask, do you mind if I sit there? Would you move over one? I usually sit there, same camera distance. You can sit right there next to me. Thank you. I appreciate it.
This way you can go.
Consistency.
I sat here because they're hard trips. This is
Oh,
a
yeah.
little more comfortable, you know?
You know, I think I just figured that out by coincidence.
Yeah.
I don't think it was on purpose.
Could be wrong. I mean, you might be comfortable. I figured you'd be more comfortable.
You're probably right. Let's see. Let's give it this. I'll turn right there. There's no one really sitting over there. We got a podium over here. Okay.
I haven't even focused. Just want to make sure.
It should be exciting.
Yeah.
People said they're going to come for the chicken wall, but
Making chicken the law that allows you to make chicken is illegal.
that's the problem. Because anything they say they haven't told you you're allowed to do is unlawful. That's the real issue.
My thing is, okay, so they make all this, they want to get it, how do you think?
Yeah, but right now you're in violation. It's not like they're making something, trying to regulate it going forward. It's currently not allowed.
Well, my thing is,
So you can't even grandpa.
nothing was said 15 years ago.
Right, so now they're trying to exercise this rule that they had that says, if we didn't say you're allowed to do it, it's an issue. Yeah. We really need to just get rid of that, because now they can say to anybody who's been doing something for 15 years, hey, we want to start collecting money on that. So now we're going to enforce it. But which water? The creek?
No, their road, all their drainage goes into my.
Their stormwater floods our farm. That's why they're suing us, because I found out it was theirs. I can't do anything about it.
I can do something about it. I can put the damn thing in, and then they gotta figure out where they're gonna put the water. Because I have to mow on the other side of it, and it's a pain in the ass for me.
Yeah, they overflow us. They destroyed our. I mean, we were getting flooded out for so long. We put, I put in a catch basin to catch all the storm water, and then they started suing us for it. So they're not fun to deal with. I can't wait to vote them out.
Thank you,
Well, my thing is, I don't bother anyone else. Ask my neighbors. They don't have a problem with it. My thing is, if my neighbors don't have a problem, I care less.
You got ducks, right? You don't even have roosters.
My neighbor has chickens. He doesn't have roosters. They don't have roosters. 2 years ago. Because they were loud because kids were.
Yeah, here's some species or breeds gonna go after your kids. No, it's all day long. Well, depending on the breed. Yeah.
So it's like,
I heard some only go at like 5 a.m. to like, dark, or some go at 24 hours. So to say you can't have any chickens is like saying you can't have any dogs because they're dog. Well, like hounds are crazy, but they're out of
you gotta get it from there for a job.
Yeah, that's regulated.
They're not gonna take that money away and tell you you can't have a job.
Yeah.
Next, they're gonna be saying you're gonna have to commit for a cat.
Well, there's nothing that says you can have cats, I think, so they're probably unlawful at the moment. That's why that rule needs to get changed. Not make a new rule for chickens so that later they can make a new rule for cats and a new rule for having, washing in your own car in your driveway.
It's a never ending.
Its local control is out of control. It's an overreach.
It's changed a lot,
I'd like to change it back.
and it's not good. It's changed.
Oh, I know. And the lawyer comes with the fee of the security guys. Yeah, only because I'm filming.
It says to be determined, it says determined by the board. So we're gonna make a 50 note.
So in other words, I could.
It doesn't mention any numbers.
It doesn't mention any numbers.
It says determined. We'll state that. We put that in zero. Well, you can take it. Okay. Right, that's fine. I'm good with that. Ready? Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First order order of business this evening is the minutes from the November 6th meeting. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as written? Second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Carried. Next up is the monthly revenue reports. Building and zoning is $32,195.41. Planning is $50. Highway is $300. Justice Sullivan Bisceglia is $23,043.20. Justice O'Hare is $5,000. Recreation is $5,000. And the town clerk is $361.71. Do I have a motion to accept the revenue reports for October?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Carried. Next is we have 3 public hearings this evening. For everybody's benefit, we have some rules regarding public comments. They apply to the public hearings as well as the public comment period at the end of the meeting. We limit comments to 3 minutes, and we require that you, in the case of the public hearings, you limit your comments and questions regarding to that particular public hearing, not other questions and issues in general. And at the end, we require you to limit your comments to things that were on the agenda for this evening. If at any time you stray from those rules, I will remind you of the rules and ask you to adhere to them, including ending at 3 minutes and staying on topic. If you refuse to cooperate with it, I will ask you to sit down and be quiet, and if you refuse to do that and are therefore disrupting the meeting, I will ask the police officers to remove you, and the board has the option of voting to suspend your right to be at this meeting for 30 days, in extreme cases. So I would ask you to respect the rules and adhere to them. First public hearing has to do with an amendment to law, moratorium on land use approvals for multifamily and residential mixed-use buildings. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Carried. Questions and comments on the first public hearing regarding the moratorium on land use? Going twice. Sir.
Hello, David Machia, Town of Lagrange. This local law number 5 amendments, is this moratorium the first round or the second round that we're on?
I don't know what you mean by round.
How long is this moratorium been in effect?
We're voting it to put it in.
No, this is to amend it regarding cost.
Right. Thank you for reminding me. We put this moratorium, in fact, this is an amendment to the moratorium to grant an exception for a particular project.
Okay, so this one's only been around for 2 months?
I don't remember when we did it.
Yeah, this September 18th.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns about this? Going twice. Do I have a motion to close the public comment? All in favor? Aye. Do you have a motion to adopt the resolution?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Next public hearing has to do with amending the town code to revise the regulations regarding residential mixed use. Do you have a motion to open the public hearing? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Questions regarding the revision to the regulations on residential mixed use? Going twice. Do a motion to close the public hearing? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Carried. Do I have a motion to adopt the resolution? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
One more thing before the next public hearing is I think it should be noted that if speakers opt to use their 3 minutes to ask questions seeking response, that will be counted towards their 3 minutes.
Right. Okay. Next section has to do with the new section of the code regarding chickens. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Carried. I suspect more than one of you are here for this one. So if you would raise your hand and wait to be recognized, I'd appreciate it. Do we need him to come up here so that we can hear him as well?
Yeah, I would have him come up.
We record the things so that we can do minutes, so if you could, if I call in, if you could come up and stand over in the corner over here, there's a microphone there that'll be able to pick up what you're saying. Comments or questions? Ma'am?
Should I go over there?
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's just so we can pick up the comments, on the record.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak. I'm Daphne Pung, and I come as a representative for two roles. One as the president of the Dutchess County 4-H Poultry Advisory, and then secondly as president of town of Lagrange. I know that I'm going to be asking, the questions going to be part of this, but one of the things is to be understanding the reasons for the restrictions for the lot area, the restrictions on roosters, and why now requiring a permit, and then why this requirement for a rear yard coop enclosure placement. Primarily, first of all, some of the restrictions here will remove the opportunity for 4-H and FFA youth from fully experiencing the education of owning, breeding, and showing poultry, both hens and cockerels. I have been a parent of a 4-H children for 12 years. They have now aged out and they are in college. One of them is working in the lab of ornithology, and where she is today is a big part of the fact that she went through 4-H and has been part of a poultry club, of which I was a parent. Now I'm the president of the Poultry Advisory, and I fully support kids, and then we have families that are in the town of Lagrange that are in 4-H. The resolution, while I applaud the fact that it's regarding the safety of the chickens, safety for predators, and ensuring their care, proper care, and so on, I feel that it is confined to the assumption that most people are keeping chickens primarily only to produce eggs for self-consumption, whereas there are people who are keeping chickens as pets. My girls have had their chickens for all of these 17 years, and they're actually my pets now. They're not for the purpose of egg production. As I said, there are families that have other purposes for owning chickens. The other aspect about having these ducks and guinea fowl and having the ability to have special permits for them, but not for roosters, is what I'm questioning as to why there is a requirement. Why the special permits are available for those and not roosters. I'm going to make an assumption it's associated with the noise, potential noise pollution associated with roosters. The ducks, especially Pino ducks, do as much damage from a noise pollution perspective, and so do guinea fowl and geese. So the other purposes is like showbird enthusiasts. My girls had the chickens as part of 4-H for primarily learning how to take care of the chickens, primarily because my husband is asthmatic and we can't have furred animals, and this is one of the type of pets that we have. My time's up?
It is, hang on a second. If people want to let her continue a little bit,
Yes.
I'm okay with that. You may continue.
Okay.
You have a prepared statement and it's.
Right, so, so we have.
You can finish your thoughts.
Yeah, so, 4-H youth are learning about poultry, and that's part of it. And there are people who are keeping poultry as showbird enthusiasts, not just for egg production and consumption. And as showbird enthusiasts, it's associated with being able to breed to the standard of perfection. I have showed my birds for the last 2 years, and they have won best of breed and best of variety as part of the Congress show in Massachusetts, and then as well as Cobblestone up in North. There are a lot of bird enthusiasts, basically. And perhaps I'd like to, from a lot size perspective, if I'd like to understand the criteria for the coop placement, as well as if they're able to comply with perhaps the lot, where the coop placement is associated with the distance from the lot line and from the building, whether or not, then, then the lot area need not be a consideration. In other words, could a lower maximum limit, right now the resolution has a maximum of 18 chickens. Perhaps could a lower maximum limit be permitted for those that have smaller lots, maybe 9, for lot sizes that are between 20 to 40,000 square meters, to allow for families who already have showbirds to be able to continue. And for the most part, people who are showbird enthusiasts don't have, their intention is not to have a breeding farm. It's intended to breed to the standard of perfection for showbird purposes. Thank you for this.
I want to ask you a couple of questions. I don't think I'm following how the law that we're proposing has any effect on why people have the chickens in the first place, right? If they're not raising them for eggs and they're doing it for show, how does that have anything to do with our law? Our law doesn't
Less than an acre.
Is it because of the acre size?
Yeah, the lot
Yeah.
size, lot
And
size.
so,
then
and what you're
roosters.
saying is, they may have a smaller lot, but they don't wanna have 18 chickens, so is there some way to accommodate that?
Right.
The answer to your question about that is, I think the way we came up with the 1 acre is that well, let me give you a little history about how we got where we are in the first place. As people probably realize, we haven't had any regulations on chickens in the town of Lagrange for many, many, many years. We do have regulations in our zoning code relating to other farm animals that say in order to have this many of horses, goats, whatever, take your pick, you need this much land. A while back, we had a resident complain because their next door neighbor had chickens. And when we looked at the code, our code does not allow chickens at all. And so the default is, if your law doesn't provide how you can have chickens, then you can't have them at all. So this is an effort not so much to regulate them away as to allow them. And when we looked at regulations in other towns in the county, the 1 acre limit is pretty common in other towns as a kind of low barrier for minimum lot size. It's pretty common in most of the towns that have regulations. It's a common lot size. So that's the answer to why that is. And you're right about the roosters. Again, very common in other towns in the county to not allow roosters because of the basic notion that people don't want to necessarily be awakened at 4:30 in the morning by roosters crowing in their next door neighbors.
May I make a comment or not necessarily a solution, but there are collars that can be put on roosters that actually will muffle their volume. I have a flock and I breed, and I put collars on my roosters. And so the volume that they actually produce is no more than the sound of a car that's passing by your road in front of your house. So I didn't think I was be allowed to bring my rooster here, but but I could demonstrate how that has been done. So.
Would be less of an exception than some of the things that happen here. But I appreciate it again. Okay.
I just got a question for you. I've tried very hard, basically this law is to help people keep their chickens, in a sense, because the law of the town is, if it's not, we don't have a law, it's not permitted.
Okay.
So I was even on the phone, I put some things on, like, I'll give you an example, if you're in an ag district, you're exempt. Because obviously your backyard is farm fields, like Skidmore Road is an ag district, they're exempt. So I tried that, but you brought a few things up that we didn't catch. So thank you for those, but the intention was not, I was on the phone today even with Cooperative Extension, talking about 4-H. We're not against that at all, but you brought up a few things that we did not discuss or consider. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for listening.
Other comments? Sure. One moment. Sorry, you're next.
I have question. So you're saying that everybody's talking about chickens, what about ducks?
The law,
I tried
provides,
looking up the law, where do you even find it?
You
it's
just need
a
a special-
proposed law, and it was published on the website as part of the minutes and agenda for this meeting. With respect to ducks, geese, and other waterfowl, the law has specific permit conditions in order to have chickens, and mentions that if you want the other fowl, you can apply for a special permit which would allow a review of the specific circumstances to determine whether those should be allowed or not, which, did we put specific criteria in it, or did we?
Just special
use
use
the
permit,
judgment?
but there's a lot of exemptions to that, like how many acres do you own?
Nate,
Okay, so you're
but
small.
I've had the ducks for 15 years.
Yeah, so it's fine, you would just have to come in, it would become, which is something I wanted to change, it'd be a free special use permit. To say, I have 2 ducks, I have a pond, I've never had an issue, and you'll get it, done.
I understand that. How long is the permit for? Is it an every year thing?
No, I don't think we're gonna do it every year, are we? Is it gotta be renewed anyway?
Special
It's every year,
permits
yeah,
to be-
but it's not an
I
expense.
think for the chickens, you think.
I'm not sure on the special use permit, I gotta read that first.
I did speak with the zoning administrator, and she asked that it be clarified that for the ducks and other things, that you're applying the same standards with the chickens. She felt that that was not as clear as it could be in the draft.
I think that's problematic, because typically you don't keep those kinds of
Things in the
birds in coops.
Then we have to probably get, and
A set of
clarify what our
standards.
standards are, yeah.
My ducks are in a house, they're
Yeah, they have to
penned
be too, they won't survive, they gotta be in coops too. Today with the hawks and things, they come in at night.
in. Them, the owl, I mean,
Right,
you gotta keep them safe.
right,
They're my kids, they all have names,
right, right.
you know, it's,
Okay, and how many do you have? You have an acre of land?
I have an acre of land, we have 25 ducks,
You have a pond?
yes,
Okay.
but you don't need a pond for ducks.
No, and where do you live? Do you live next to an ag district? Are you in a rural area?
No, I live off of, Noble Lane. There's a swamp behind it,
What's the address? Can you say-
5 Noble Lane.
I don't look up there, it is. Okay, and you have 25 days, okay.
And my neighbors know about it.
Right,
They-
right.
They have no problem with it.
Right, right, and that's really the issue kind of thing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I have one other question, real quick, sorry. The permit, all I gotta do is come in here,
We didn't make the law yet, so yes, when the law.
once it's done.
Yeah.
There'll be a form you fill out and a process to go through.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir.
Dave White, Skidmore Road. I don't have an acre, and I got chickens.
You're in an ag district.
They solved them, right?
Yeah, case solved.
Nobody's complaining,
Nobody's complaining you're in an ag
I don't have an
district.
issue
Well,
with
You're- you're-
is he a farmer, or does he get an ag exemption?
He's in an ag district. You putting there anybody in an ag
Put
district?
farm
is barred.
operation within an agricultural.
No, I added ag district. You didn't type that in there like that?
I typed it in the way the county recommended.
No, but that's not what I said. I said if you're in an ag district, you're also, because if you're in an ag district, we need to change that. We're in an ag district, means you got farmland all around you. What do I care if he's got an acre, if there's 500 acres?
I have a field, that's.
He's
the
in an
only-
ag
I don't know that you always, if you're in an ag district, always have farmland around you, so you,
Well, you pretty much do.
there's a,
No.
no,
I can think of
A
one
lot.
noticeable.
so.
But that was something I did add, and that was one of the 4-H reasons why I added that, because if they're in, because I know many people that have small lots and they've had animals because they've sold off the main farm and now they just live in a little farmhouse.
So right now, 305A, the Ag and Markets Law would exempt this law by matter of state law for farm
understand that.
operations and ag districts.
But we have other people that live, Skidmore Road, that have chickens, many of them do, and they're downsized, but their across the street is a 100-acre field, so I did put in there that, which I thought I gave you, that, and if you're in an ag district, you're exempt.
Now, I have 0.69 acres, and I never had a complaint, that's my whole issue. And I do have it's all field all around.
Technically, you could get a special use permit anyway,
Correct.
and then.
I mean, if I
So
had
you
to, that's
need to
fine.
look at though whether or not.
We gotta make
you
changes
have
anyway,
laws.
yeah, we gotta make
And
changes.
it's just the acreage
Right.
thing, because,
Thank you.
you
Well,
know,
actually, it's
We're not
actually-
done with it now,
You're,
obviously.
you're actually asking the same question as the first person.
that's what I just.
That's true.
Thanks.
Other comment? Woman all the way in the back. Okay, you're next.
on Smith Road. I am the vice president of the Dutchess County Poultry Advisory. We've had chickens for 7 years. We also have ducks, and we raise turkeys for meat. My kids are both in 4-H. This is their 7th year. Part of what they want to do in 4-H is they want to become master showmen. And to become master showmen, you have to breed chickens, you have to raise meat birds. A master showman, just to let you know, is the equivalent of being a Eagle Scout and Boy Scouts and a Gold Award winner in Girl Scouts. It's good for scholarships, it's good on job applications. So they have been raising meat birds and breeding birds for the last couple of years, and they would like to continue that. I live on just over 2 acres. I live across the street from Barton Orchards, their farm stand. I don't believe that's still an ag district. I think our property used to be an ag district where they divided up into a subdivision. The other comment that I have is that not all chickens are the same. I have mostly bantam chickens. They take less space than full-size standard chickens. Some of my bantam chickens are the size of robins. So 18 bantam chickens take up that much space. I also wanted to let you know that I am a member of the American Poultry Association, the American Bantam Association, and the American Silkie Association. I also am in compliance with New York State and the nation for the National Poultry Improvement Plan. New York State Aggie Market comes out to my house every year. They inspect my coop, they inspect my chickens, they test my chickens for florum, which is a disease similar to salmonella. They're clean. I have paperwork for my farm that says that they're clean, that I'm allowed to breed. They check my brooders. I also have paperwork that says I can take my chickens across state lines to show, and that I can take my chickens across state lines to sell. And I have been part of the NPIP National Poultry Improvement Plan for the last 3 years. And I would like to continue doing what I'm doing. We have pets. The chickens are pets. The chickens are showbirds. We take them to Poultry Congress in Massachusetts. We take them to Cobleskill. I plan on going to the Ohio National. I have a turkey right now. He is the reigning champion of the Northeast. He's the best turkey in the Northeast. I only have 2 turkeys right now because I just got 8 of them processed for Thanksgiving. And I would like to take him to the Ohio National next year and see how he does on the big stage. But I appreciate that you're trying to regulate what happens with the chickens and you're concerned with their health and their welfare. I just wanted to make it known that there's people out there that really love and really care about chickens. And I'm glad that there's going to be a law in the books, but we would also like to continue some of what we were doing. And I also have a concern, do you have a price in mind for the permit?
Right.
Okay.
That's what we're not trying to do this for money.
We're not doing it for money.
Yeah, I also all chicken breeds are different as well. I have roosters that don't crow at all. I had one that was loud and I got rid of them. But I have some that don't make any noise at all.
And do you have a comment about the earlier comment about the collars? Is that something you're familiar with?
It is something I'm familiar with. We actually did a project in 4-H about them to see their effectiveness. They do work. They limit. Basically, they limit how much air the bird can take in and expel. So it really cuts down on the volume. My chicken coop is more than 200 feet from my house. It's more than 50 feet from each property line. I would put it further back because I can't, because my last acre is a 500-year flood coffer, so I can't put anything back there. But if it was down below the hill, they would be no noise whatsoever.
Could you email us, and anybody else who has spoken with your concerns, email us if we have some questions? We're just trying to get this right also, and we're not against chickens or any formation, right?
Can I just ask you a quick question? You said you're on 2 acres of land?
2.34 acres.
And how many chickens do you have?
Right now I have 4.
Bantams though, right?
Mostly, I have 3 or 4 standards that are about that big, and then my bantams are anywhere from this big to about
Right.
I'm sorry, how many did you say?
40. And 3 bantam ducks that are also about this big, and 1 big duck.
We're not
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
No, he's too old to eat. He's gonna be 4.
Again,
you.
email us if you can, so if you have any questions. Thanks.
you.
We have your envelope.
I think you're next.
I'm Jen Hunt. We live on over an acre, so that's not an issue, not in an ag district. First of all, I want to thank you for taking up this issue. I think that, I appreciate your desire to make sure that this is done right, as other people have expressed. I respectfully request that you consider dropping the permit and dropping the fee. I think there are lots of rules on the books that don't require permits, don't require fees, and they're still looking to be enforced and managed by the town. I think it would, reduce overhead for the town and cost for the town, as well as for residents. The second point is on roosters. We do have chickens. I do not have a rooster, but I do think that you could consider that your noise violation laws and code could cover some of the concerns that you have with roosters. So I just ask that you consider that and put roosters in the same category as ducks and other birds. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments? Ma'am, in the back.
So I'm on 2.5 acres, not in an ag district, or residential area, 6 chickens, and they're hefty little girls. I was curious about the application fee. I was happy to hear you saying free, but also why would we need to apply every year? It seems like a burden on the individuals keeping the chickens, and a fee would have been prohibitive. But even just having to apply every year is also a little bit prohibitive. Keeping chickens is not cheap, so I'm glad that there is no fee. Maybe a renewal every 3 to 5 years, or if there's any changes in the coop or changes in the number of birds, that might be a way to go around it. Also, what's the paperwork going to be like? Is it going to be overly complicated paper forms? Perhaps we could suggest like an easy, streamlined online form, like Google Forms, to make it easier on the individuals and the town. So I had an issue with the one coop situation. I'm concerned that the resolution specifies that you can only have one stationary coop or mobile coop and one coop enclosure. There are reasons why you want to separate your flock into 2 coops. What happens when someone upgrades their coop? Like, are they expected to destroy the old one? For me, I think it would be a better idea to keep that as a backup or an isolation coop. So we have one main coop, and we want a main coop, and we want to use our old mobile coop as like an isolation, to isolate any sick chickens, broody chickens, like when a chicken wants to sit on a peg all day, you gotta isolate them. So it's nice to have another place to put them. If you have a chicken sitting on an egg and wants to raise that egg, you want to be able to separate them from the flock. So having it say that you can only have one coop is a really prohibitive here. So I would encourage you to consider changing that. So possibly saying like two stationary coops and 2 mobile coops, that would be my suggestion. Or somebody with like 6 acres may want, more than 1 coop. So that's my comments about that. While I personally don't want to keep 18 chickens, that number seems pretty limiting, especially to somebody who has a large parcel like 5 or 7 acres. You should all keep in mind that chickens come in many different sizes, and like the other person was saying, phantom silkies, 18 chickens wouldn't take up a lot of space. I'd ask you to consider raising the number to something like 30, or have it based on the number of acres that are available, like 12 chickens per acre with a maximum of 30 chickens, something like that. But 18 seems really limiting to me.
That's only if you're under 5 or 7 acres.
Well, 2.5 acres.
So the maximum amount seems limiting.
It does, to me, especially if you have some video guys.
You mean like the bantam?
Like the bantam.
Right, that's something I didn't think of, yeah.
So I have
Anybody else?
I
will tell you, what I've heard this evening makes me deeply confused about the regulations everywhere else in the county. Because I literally looked at, I don't know, at least half a dozen other towns in the county and the regulations regarding chickens. And none of what's been discussed tonight is in any of those regulations, which makes me wonder whether, well, it doesn't make me wonder that everybody in Lagrange somehow has unique chicken raising during Christmas. So it makes makes me wonder to what degree those laws are being followed, adhered to, or enforced in other parts of the county, to be perfectly blunt. Because I don't know. It seems like there are more exceptions than there are rules to be met.
And it would be nice if it was on a case-by-case basis with exceptions, but to have it just be these regulations, clear cut, you can't have this, you can't have that, it feels very limiting as it is.
Okay.
So if I could just address that though, the difficulty is that they're gonna regulate it because it's municipality, there has to be some standards in how they apply.
Definitely.
So there's gotta be some parameters, so I just wanted to make sure that's clear.
But thank you for your comments, for sure.
Is it okay if I keep going?
Okay.
I have a secluded lot surrounded by trees, but no fence. I'm unable to, it said, the regulation right now says I'm unable to free range because I don't have a fully enclosed yard that's chicken proof. I think that's not great.
No, that doesn't say that. It says you can if you supervise them, but if you allow them to go dig up your neighbor's yard, then you're gonna lose that privilege.
Absolutely, and I think that's totally fine. You really shouldn't let them wander off the property, digging up gardens. I think that's fine language. Constant supervision, is that human supervision? What about a guard goose? What about
Well, whatever, but if your neighbor complains
Yeah,
that your chickens have been in his mulch 3 times in a week, you're gonna lose the privilege.
and I totally agree with that.
Yeah, that's all. I don't care how you monitor them.
But how it's written
There's
right
no
now makes
law
it
says
seem
that.
like it
It
needs
is,
to be fully
no, it
enclosed.
isn't, it says you have to, no, it says you have to be there. Yeah.
Or it's
Well, yeah.
supervised, and I'm
But they
pretty sure
have
when it's
2.5 acres,
supervision,
she's not gonna.
it is not
Well,
talking
either
about
fences or
a
supervised.
supervisory use. I'm
So I
virtually
would-
certain that's not what it is.
So if I don't have a fence, I would need to be out there with a lawn chair watching. my
Well, if you're
chickens.
not, how are you gonna stop your chickens from going to your neighbor's yard?
They don't, chickens,
I have
they
a
pretty.
I have a tree line, they're not going through that.
Well, as long as they're not going there, your neighbor's not gonna complain and no one's gonna care.
And I totally agree with that, but the way it's written right now makes me feel like I can't do it. You know what I'm saying?
The whole
You
permitting.
gotta make rules,
the-
but no one's gonna care.
Except,
I assure you.
except that in order for them to get the permit in the first place, they would have to demonstrate that their yard has a pen.
No,
and a fence.
there's an
Yeah, they
exception.
would, actually. Somebody's gonna determine whether they meet the criteria before they issue
Wait a
the
minute
permit.
now, and I think we put an exception in, I changed that like the first round. Rebecca, that's in there, right?
Hold on.
Hold on, let me look
I
at it.
mean,
Hold on, let me look at it. I'm pretty sure we did that. Because of that reason, some people don't wanna, like I have chickens too,
It
and I
does
watch them.
say
in
that
my
they
front
may
yard.
be allowed outside the coop enclosure for
Right.
free range.
Right.
Within a surrounding fully fence enclosed yard, or they can free range outside of a fence enclosed rear yard for a limited period of time with constant supervision of the owner. So I don't think they would necessarily have to have a fence in order to get the
Right,
permit.
well, if you got a herding dog that keeps them in your yard, that's supervision, correct?
I agree with that.
Okay.
Our guard goose.
Owner or owner's representative.
Right, so you can say my dog is my herder.
I don't know that I would agree with that legal
No?
interpretation, council member, but.
As long as the birds are not in the neighbor's yards and they're not complaining, that's our intent, I'll look at it, but you have to obviously.
It
look
does
at
say,
how-
if an owner fails to maintain and they're kept outside of the property, that's where the violation.
I mean, there's no way, I know my chickens, if I wasn't watching them, they'd be, traveling pretty far.
Yeah.
It's the ours never.
I'm
You have
glad to
little
hear
ones.
that you have chickens, that you were helped write this and you have chickens, that makes me feel good. The section about chickens shall be provided food and water at all times, that language sounds problematic to me. I have an automatic feeder and water, but many people bring food and water once a day to the chickens. I would suggest that the language be changed from removing at all times and replacing it with every day instead, and also including the word adequate, so chickens shall be provided adequate food and water every day. And this is especially important because the guidance around, like, if you have a rodent problem, is remove your automatic feeder and give them food once a day and clean it up.
Yep.
So that's just something to consider.
So, it says chickens shall be provided with adequate food and water at all times. I don't think that necessarily means it has to be in front of them at all times.
I took it to mean at all times, and I think other
But
people.
adequate, so not every minute do you need to have something there, is how I
Provided.
would interpret that.
And I'm not arguing, I'm just thinking of coming into this town 5 years from now, not in this public hearing and trying to read these rules and saying, oh no, so just something to keep in mind.
Prevent the controversy, yeah.
The resolution says residents, will have 30 days to register chickens. I would suggest that it be changed to 30 days to register new chickens,
and I would encourage you to grandfather the people that have existing chickens, maybe a year. You're asking some pretty big structural changes, you know, especially if you keep the one coop situation and people have more than one coop. So I would like you to consider that. And the rooster issue. I don't have roosters, but there's a lot of reasons why perhaps roosters should be allowed in certain circumstances. And I'm fine with you saying, you know, roosters are not permitted under this permit, say that they're not permitted at all, blanket statement. Roosters provide a lot of protection for the flock, they maintain the pecking order, they help with reproduction. If I could have a rooster, I would have a rooster, and I would like to have a rooster. But I can totally understand needing to apply for a special permit for that, maybe even having a petition signed by all your neighbors and the people that can hear them. There should be circumstances that allow it, is what I'm trying to say.
All right,
And that's all.
thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but these fines are only imposed after a ticket is issued and it goes to court. We issue a ticket and say, well, the code says adequate at all times and they don't have food between 2 and 3 in the afternoon, I'm gonna be laughed out of the courtroom. So, I mean, there are
Yeah,
checks
I
and
agree with the
balances
food.
with
I
the
think we're fine on the
process.
food issue, I think if it
Yeah.
says adequate, I think it's good. But we've got these other concerns. Do you have anybody else?
Sir.
So as I'm coming up, I appreciate this opportunity. It's great to participate in lawmaking. Come on. It's not Albany, it's not Washington DC. Like, I can see the thinking in process. It's great. Now, that being said, overall, my observation is that the proposed law is more restrictive than it needs to be. Right? So I've heard a lot of comments about we don't want chickens. I mean, I'm a Lagrange resident and a homeowner. I don't want my neighbor's chickens in my yard. I don't want to smell them. You know, if my neighbor's running a jackhammer, I don't care what they're doing, right? Are they welding? Are they playing the trumpet? Are they playing the violin? Right? We're a civilized society. We should be able to get along with each other. So
That
I
has
like
been my observation.
I know. But you're not going to civilize a society through laws either. So I like a lot of the things in here that talk about we don't want the birds in the neighbor's yard. We want it in the back of the house. Like, this is addressing the problem, and I like those parts. But the law does include elements that, as proposed, include things that are more restrictive than need to be. So here's a couple of examples. First, there's an overhead of permits. I heard you talking about permits. Does that, and I even think I heard somebody say we're going to go inspect at the site. As a taxpayer,
If
I don't
you
want to
have
pay for that.
standards to be issued a permit, somebody has to determine whether you meet those standards in order to issue the permit, yes.
So my
That's
solution
how
is,
this works.
so that we don't have to send people to every site, no permits. Second, you
How do we
probably,
allow something without a permit?
an ordinance. There's lots of stuff that's regulated by property, right? I don't have permits for
Careful.
noise. If I'm running a jackhammer.
It's a
24/7.
really, really bad example. Since it's impossible to administer, just so you know.
Right.
Go ahead.
So, second, so that's sections A1, A3, and C. Section 1A2, restricting the lot size as well as the number of chickens. We've had a lot of discussion around that. I think if you simply remove it, I heard some proposals here that talked about, and there's already in the law, items on ethical keeping of chickens. Talks about placement of the coops, not imposing on the neighbors. Let's leave it at that. Third, the law does include provisions for a run. Section 1A3 should be revised to accommodate fowl that are able to be kept in a run. The law, as it's written right now, says that they have to be, the non-chicken fowl have to be in a crate or cage. So I just, it's a little inconsistent. Fourth, section 1A8, it prohibits running at large. I think that should be removed because section 1A7B outlines the conditions when the chickens can be large. So it's just a little consistency in the way it's written. And then lastly, for section 3, I heard someone else comment, and we're also entering the winter time. The law is proposed currently says it would take effect immediately when it's filed with the state, 180 days or 6 months or a year, whatever was proposed, just to let people accommodate. And that's all I have.
Can you email us your comments on that?
Who's got who's collecting the-
Oh, you have it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
So the previous gentleman said that a lot more eloquently than I will. But just to echo a few of those points, I think the fee and the checking feels absurd, and the cost that the taxpayer then has to bear for something that the majority of people here, and even you guys, seem to feel is somewhat irrelevant. So for us to regulate that heavily enough to require someone to go and look at a neighbour's or my yard, it feels like we're wasting our money at that time by even discussing this, because there may be 1%, 2%, 3% of people that disagree with this. There's 1%, 2%, 3% of people that disagree with everything. And if the 97% is here and is uniform, then for us to be doing anything is undemocratic in some ways. So I would say this has felt like a fairly uniform opinion. And even if 1, 2 people stood up now and had some kind of counter to it, it would still not be anywhere near the majority of belief within our society. We have a beautiful rural place here. We've got gentlemen who've had duck friends for the last 25 years that are now faced with having to register them. And we're saying, as a town council, that we don't really believe in that. We believe in like helping people to have it, and we believe that people should have to have standards. And of course they should have standards. As the gentleman said, if I'm running a jackhammer, if I'm doing anything else on my property, if I'm creating a smell, if I'm creating any form of disturbance to my neighbours, I have to be held accountable for that through all of the other laws that we have. And so what I would ask is that if we have to do anything, we just consider a registration, something as minimum as that, where somebody says, I've got chickens, I've got ducks, I've had chickens, I've had ducks, please be aware as a town, I'm not paying any money, it's not a permit, don't have to send someone here, don't have to check my yard, I've had them for 20 years, and if nobody complains about them, then there's no issue. And if somebody complains, and somebody from the town goes over and says a reasonable person would have no issue with this, you don't need to spend money on that, you don't need to spend time on that. And we don't need to take that away from the people that have been doing something for 20, 30 years, just because some other town near us has taken a law or taken a direction. We shouldn't take that if we don't think it's the right direction to take. We should say no. Lagrange is one way. We believe in these things that our population believes in, and we're going to maintain that. So I feel that there's been a very clear opinion from the people that have spoken, who've turned out. And even beyond those people, I think if you were to knock on 1,000 doors in Lagrange, we'd have a fairly uniform answer. We love it here because it's slightly rural, but not too rural. We love it here because the people are nice. And as a community, we can speak with one another, and we can sort of bypass our problems in a civil manner, as the gentleman said, without regulating them. Over-regulation will require people to be less civil to one another, not more civil. So I would ask you to sort of park this at the minimum level of regulation that you can come to, because to do anything else than that is just costly, undemocratic in a way that there has been a uniform of opinion here, and it just feels like a waste of everyone's time. There's real issues here in this town, in this country, in this state. And we're talking about chickens and ducks here when most people don't really have anything like this.
Bravo.
I got one. Sure. How many complaints are we actually getting on this? Enough to enact this? I mean, give me a number of how many complaints in the town of Lagrange are actually getting.
1 is enough. And the reason 1 is enough is because of what we outlined. If you have, just a minute, if you have a complaint about something that is not permitted,
right,
then you have to say they're not permitted. And as we articulated, if you don't have anything in your law that says they're permitted, then they're not permitted. That's a state law, by the way, it's not a town law. Zoning law says if you don't specifically say it's okay, then it is presumed to be not a permitted use. And so we're attempting to make it a legal use by defining it. The idea that you don't have to do that because everybody thinks it's okay, and then you can decide whether it's a good idea when you get a complaint, sounds practical, but it isn't how law is enforced. Because if you tell somebody they can't do it, they'll say, yeah, where does it say that? And you have nothing to lean on, and you have nothing to demand that they do anything in particular, and you have nothing to enforce. I'm receptive to the idea that we can find a way to do that in a minimalist way without having 45 pages of regulations and weekly inspections and all of that. I am receptive to that idea, and I think that's what we did. I would emphasize, however, that we're not implementing this because some other towns thought it was a good idea. We're implementing it because we were confronted by the fact that it's not permitted and we want to permit it, and we simply looked at other towns to say, well, how do they do it? Instead of starting with a blank piece of paper. And that's why we went about it the way we did. There's somebody in the back, a woman in the back, ma'am?
Hi, Tricia Messick. I've been a resident of the town of Lagrange for 36 years. I've had, I like to say I respect people with chickens because I had a daughter who raised rabbits in 4-H. So being part of the community, being in Dutchess County in itself, going to the Dutchess County Fair, I have respect for that. But moving in here in the town of Lagrange, I was under the understanding that the 10 acres for farmland was where you started having animals. Now, and where I come into chickens, was it 2 years ago that and this is with 7 years of going to the town, because I have a neighbor who has chickens. We started having chickens back in 2011, 2012, and started having issues with smell, issues with roosters, confronted this neighbor who did nothing, and actually even told me, I can do what I want, it's my property. Now, I lived with it for several years, and still living with the problem still. So, it would be nice to have some regulation clearly stated, so neighbors have some recourse of enjoying their own property. Because I've had chickens come into my yard, rip up my flower bed, and have no recourse.
And the point, if I may, the point being made here is, if she complains to us, there's literally nothing we can do because we don't have anything in our books that say that her neighbor has to do anything in particular about this. So we can go talk to them and ask them to be better neighbors, but if they don't, there's literally nothing we can do about it. We can't enforce it. We can't give them a violation because they're not violating anything in our code. We can't drag them into court because the judge is going to say, and what is it that they did wrong and where is that written down? That's the point of us trying to write something down to put something rational around this. So we're trying to find that middle ground of what's reasonable to expect people to do, and that when people who have chickens are responsible, we would expect them to go, yeah, that's no problem, I'm already doing that. But we have to do something, because otherwise we cannot control it at all. The idea that other parts of our code will take care of this is simply not happening. That's just not true.
Can I bring up one concern
Sure.
that's been on my mind now, because there is so many chickens, the protection of well water, the protection of where running water is with chickens, is there any issue with that? And also, you can rectify that you said about the odor of chickens, but also the disposal of the chicken manure. There's been no topic of proper disposal of the chicken manure. Like I said, with well water, if they're reusing it on their property, or the coop is near a well, so, it's
I think that's a
concern of
non-issue,
mine.
yeah.
Excuse me?
I think that's a non-issue, I've never heard of that.
Non-issue with well water?
And that's why I'm not
Delaware,
worry about that.
How many chickens?
Put my manure in the garden.
You can use that for a fellow.
My chicken manure goes in the garden.
18.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, others? Back.
My name is Shannon Barrett. I wasn't planning on speaking, but I thought I would come up because I'm really feeling strongly about all this. I just moved to Lagrangeville a year ago. I bought a property, 4 acres, that in my house contract, there were 8 chickens and a rooster. So I've had a crash course in chicken tending and becoming a crazy chicken lady. I have a background, I was a licensed veterinary technician for 25 years, so I understood animals, but this has been a wild ride, but one that I get a lot of joy out of. My first thing I wanted to say about the roosters and the concern with the noise. I had my neighbor send me a text very soon after we moved in, and she had just moved into her house the same month we did, and she said, I love hearing your rooster every morning. We moved from the Bronx to be in a country setting, to have agriculture around us, for my kids to know what a rooster sounds like. And it was so wonderful to me because everyone's always so worried about the noise, but they have embraced our rooster. He goes in at night, he comes out in the morning, he crows a couple times, that's it. As far as my rooster being important, I can't tell you the amount of times he has protected my flock from turkey vultures, hawks. We have an eagle, we have a fox, we currently have a bobcat that hunts during the day. And we know when he's around because my rooster alerts. So I think just saying no roosters because of a noise issue, I understand noise issues, but there's, children playing is noise, dogs barking are noise. The rooster is playing a crucial part of protecting the flock. So I don't think saying just no roosters.
How many acres do you have?
4 and change.
Thank you.
I just appreciate keeping the roosters.
Thank you.
They do perform a role.
My name is Raul DeLeon, living in this town for 35 years. And with all due respect for the chicken lovers, I have no problem on your property. That is absolutely fine, but it could lead to violence, and I'm going to tell you why. My neighbor, 2 doors down, has a whole bunch of chickens. I don't know how many he has. I don't care how many he has. They're in my yard every day. Okay, I don't make a big deal. I don't say nothing to him about it, anything. But the next door neighbor to him, chickens were all over his yard, doing their duty all over his yard. His dogs were rubbing their shoulder into that mess. He turned around, this neighbor turned around from his porch, shot the chicken with a gun. Led to a lot of violence. So I just want to say that. There should be a rule. Okay?
Yeah, thank you. Sir?
Correct.
What's that?
And that's why we're passing laws like this.
And that's why the proposed law requires a fence.
I'm sorry, I just lived here my whole life and it's like, I've never had any experience.
Yeah, and that's, and actually, and honestly, that is the issue here, right? We've all lived in this town for decades, and the fact that we're discussing this after decades of this not being a problem is an indication that it's not a general problem, but it can be, and that's why we're trying to take a minimalist approach so that we can impose some sort of rational controls over it to prevent people from shooting other people's chickens. Sir?
My name is Dante Yofi. I've been a resident of Lagrange for 15 years, and I'd just like to comment on the issue that the lady took the file that I believe. Is there a reason why that couldn't be charged under vandalism? And secondly, in terms of the noise issue of the roosters, to that I say, if you don't like it, I'm pretty sure the city's that way. And, like the person said before, people come here to experience the rural life. And, it's just seems like not the place.
Yeah, your point about asking whether somebody could be charged with vandalism was related to which comment?
If someone's chicken does damage to a neighbor's property, could that not be charged under vandalism or neglect?
I doubt it.
Okay.
Vandalism is a crime against a person, not an animal. So I don't, my guess is, I'm not a criminal attorney, but my guess is that would not be classified as vandalism under the law. And I'm not sure whether that, my guess would be, if you consulted an attorney, you would be told it's a civil matter and you can sue if you want.
Right.
That would be my guess.
Excuse me, can I just ask you how many acres you own and how many chickens you have?
One, and I do not.
Okay.
But I have.
Just trying to get a census here, that's all.
Careful about telling us about the things you do now.
Clearly.
Without us asking. That may or may not be a great idea.
For my entire childhood, I have gone to Sprout Creek Farm Camp, and I have, tended to chickens and goats through that program. So I'm not coming from no experience here. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments? Sir?
Yes. My name's Alan. I've been here for about 10 years now. And I guess my question is in regards to a couple of things. The permit wise, if we get a permit, what would cost us to use the permit? Like, is there a way, like if a neighbor ends up complaining, do we end up losing the permit, or do we?
I believe the rationale behind the annual renewal, which I've already wrote down and said, do we really need to do it that way? The idea behind it, I think, is to give the town a vehicle to revoke the permit if, in fact, complaints have come in. The town has told the person to correct the errors, they haven't done it. The renewal gives you the vehicle of saying, okay, we're done with you. You've been given warnings, you're not adhering to the regulations, you now no longer have a permit, you gotta remove the chickens. That's, I think, the vehicle behind it. As Al put earlier, the intent of, whenever you ask for a permit in the code, you normally say, the fee will be determined by the town board. And the reason for that is simple. We don't want to have to go through the whole process of changing a law to change the fees. So all the laws refer to a fee schedule, and then we can just adopt a fee schedule without going through this whole process of changing the law and filing with the state and so forth. So the fees are always divorced from the law. The purpose of fees in general is not to generate revenue to the town. The purpose of fees in general is to have the people who are requiring some services by the people who work here to pay for it rather than the taxes at large. So the fees, the idea behind the entire fee schedule for all fees, building permits and that, so forth and so on, the idea behind it is to make those fees be commensurate with the cost of the people who have to do the work associated with them. So that the rest of the people who aren't asking those people to do anything aren't paying for it. That's the idea behind the fee schedule. I think our collective view about a permit for this is it's not going to require much work from anybody, so we don't have to require a fee. Because it's not going to require somebody to spend hours of doing anything in particular to determine whether you meet the criteria. You'll probably come in with a piece of paper that says, here's my yard, this is where I'm putting it. You know, it looks like that meets the specifications. You're done, here you go. So we're probably, our thinking right now is that we would not attach a fee to the permit. And I'm interested in the suggestion of whether it makes sense to have it reviewed annually or not. I think that's a good question, and I wrote it down. So we'll see.
So that's fine. I guess my main concern was that, like, if a neighbor complains about, like everyone has mentioned, noise, how do you remedy that without getting rid of the chickens?
Well, that's why.
I can answer that. the whole reason for having specific regulations is so that the town can determine when we get a complaint, whether that complaint matches a violation of the regulations or not, right? If, for example, our regulations say that you can't have roosters, then if you have a rooster, then in your violation, and you're gonna be told to get rid of the rooster. If, on the other hand, somebody comes in and says, you know, I'm out on my deck and I really don't like hearing those chickens cluck, and there's nothing in the law that says anything about clucking chickens, and we'll say, well, that's unfortunate, but we don't have any regulation over that at all. The whole idea behind putting the regulations in place is so that people processing the complaints are not in a position where they sort of have to arbitrarily decide whether they think it's a good idea or not to do something about it. That's the whole idea behind it. So it's kind of a long-winded answer, but the bottom line is if we get a complaint, somebody's going to investigate whether that complaint matches something in the code that you can't do or not do.
Okay. And I guess my second comment was, earlier, I believe you guys had mentioned that the limit in size would be like about an acre, that's right?
The current law says that is, how many chickens is it per acre? 8?
Yeah.
And with a minimum lot size of 1 acre. That's what the current law says. We've had multiple people that have said, I don't want 8 chickens. Why do I have to have an acre, and why can't I have 2 chickens on half an acre, or whatever the thing is?
So we did hear that.
Okay, yeah.
But, and again, 1 acre seems to be a rule of thumb that is considered a minimum lot size for this sort of thing.
Okay, because my concern.
In other places we've looked.
Yeah, because my only concern is that I'm just shy of that 1 acre. I'm like 0.95 acres. So that would mean what? That I can't have chickens?
Actually, I think you'd be okay, because it says 40,000 square feet.
Yeah, you'd be all right.
Okay.
It actually says 40,000 square feet, which is, well, that's about an acre, but it's actually less, so you'd probably be okay.
I think it's 0.92.
0.93 0.93.
What about the
40,000
person
square-
with 39,000 square feet, you know? Like, right under.
46,543
Is
square
it?
feet is an acre.
Right, so 40,000 is actually quite a bit less than, not a lot less, but it's not a lot less. Yes, ma'am?
My name is Ashley Sormat, and we have chickens, and I know the intention of writing this law is to allow people to keep chickens, who are taking good care of them and all of that. And then so my question is, if there was a neighbor that complains, will there be like, oh, chicken was in my yard, but in actuality, maybe chicken wasn't in the yard, but that's the complaint, like how does the process after that complaint comes through? How does that work in terms of
I would assume.
proving that was
Yeah, I would
that
assume.
just a rape that happened and like we have cameras that show our yard with like no chicken passing a certain area.
I'm sure the building department would have to verify, they wouldn't just, you're innocent until proven guilty, basically, right?
Yeah. In general, the answer to that is the same as somebody complaining about any violation in any part of our code. Somebody would have to investigate whether in fact it happened or not. And if the person wanted to complain about that, they'd be asked to say, okay, you can show me that that happened, or we'd go and ask, and the person would say, I don't know what they're talking about, and we'd have to make a determination what to do. You wouldn't assume that because somebody is complaining that you need to take any particular action. You'd have to look into it, like any kind of complaint anywhere else in the world.
Okay. And this, I mean, this is off topic, but I know that, well, things on topic with the rooster thing, we don't currently have one, but we have had one in the past, it was like my child's like child. And it didn't crow all the time either, you know, but it obviously did. Is there like regulation for other animals, like dog barking versus chicken crowing, and just in terms of noise? For example, we have dogs that bark 24/7, but our chicken only crow every now and again. So just in terms of crowing, again, we don't have one currently, but I know a lot of people do.
I know that our animal control officer deals with complaints about barking dogs on a pretty regular basis. So if there is a dog that barks all the time, that's something that,
I'm not complaining about
no,
it.
no, no, I'm just
Just
saying,
curious about
that
the
is
law.
something that we follow up on from another part of the code.
So there is regulation there.
Correct.
All right.
And there's, just so you know, there's a sort of general purpose, noise, I don't know, ordinance that can actually be used, but as I said earlier,
Like the
it
chicken stop
really,
sign at 10 at
it really
night.
is not very easy to do, because
7.
it's a decibel level at the property line, and again, you have to demonstrate it's true. So unless somebody from the town is gonna go out to the property with a recorder or a meter to say how loud it is and notice it when it's happening, which won't be true because it'll be Saturday night. That ordinance is extremely challenging to administer. And we get into all kinds of odd things where people are never gonna complain about the fact that their next door neighbor has a lawnmower, but they will complain if they have an ATV that's driving around, the engine of which sounds roughly the same as a lawnmower. So we deal with that on a pretty regular basis. So,
Okay, thank you.
yep, all the way back.
Good evening. My name's Paul DeMelto, 46 Old Overlook Road. 28 years in Lagrange. For about 10 years close to 10 years I've had chickens, 1 duck. I'm on a half an acre. So.
How many chickens do you have?
Right now I have 18.
Okay.
I have 18 and 1 duck. I will tell you now that mine free range, most of the time. My neighbors love my animals, my ducks, my chickens.
When you say they free range, they walk on their property and your neighbors like that?
Between.
I can testify to that, I was a neighbor. I don't own any chickens, I feed them all the time.
Okay, so the answer is yes, they free range on his property and he doesn't mind.
Yeah, and actually all 4 corners of my property.
Okay.
The kids next door are very happy that they're there. They love the duck. My biggest issue is lot size.
Let me ask you, you're on Overlook, so do you have neighbors behind you or do you have woods behind you? Pretty
No,
sure
I
that's-
have Pete is behind me.
So he's behind, 'cause I know there's a big protected wetland, there's a lot of woods around that.
Yeah, so that's on the opposite side of Overlook.
Okay.
I'm on the corner of Old Overlook and Kramer Road.
So do you have neighbors besides him, or is he there? That's it?
I have him to the back of me, and then I have one to the left of me.
So neighbors are good, yep.
So my neighbors are very good to me.
So just so you know, I have a neighbor who had chickens, they don't anymore. I think that's because they didn't have a fence, and my guess is they lost them to foxes.
Well, we got hit by a raccoon.
But I will say that they roamed all over the road in the neighbor's property, and nobody in my neighborhood cared
Yeah,
either.
so my biggest.
Unusual circumstance.
My biggest thing is I understand, I work in an area where you need laws and ordinances to follow and move forward with telling people that they can and can't do things.
Right.
Property size is, like I said, is probably the biggest issue for me. Just my opinion, I would have absolutely no problem coming to the town and saying, hey, this is what I have. This is, how they're kept. My chickens they will meet you for coffee in the back door. That's the way they are.
But they do have a coop for night.
Oh, yeah, they have an automatic door, goes up
Right,
and
there's
down.
no way in dark, right.
Yeah, they probably do better than some of my kids. So, I can tell you that.
Okay.
They have very large waters, very large feeders. They have a very nice coop.
I think obviously, if we don't have a complaint from your neighbors, no one's coming to your house.
Oh, yeah, and like I said, the biggest issue I have here is you guys are putting a lot size, 1 acre, then we got down to 40,000 square feet. Well, I'm running about that.
I guess what we're asking is if you can, just a caveat, is if the neighbor agrees, let's just say.
Right, you could have
and
something.
between the two of us, we have an acre, let's say, would that be?
Thank you, yeah, we're looking at it.
Understood.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Basically, I'm so happy that everybody turned out, even the people that have issues. I hate as they say, the bad apple spoils the bunch, but, there are some that, don't have nice neighbors and, you know, are kind to their neighbors. So,
Alright,
alrighty,
Thank
thank you very
you.
much.
others? Sir?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Robin Prasad. I live at Tree-Lamar Lane. I have chickens. I've had them for about 3 years now. And I just want to also mention that I'm Bill's neighbor. The guy that has all those wonderful ducks. And my kids and my family enjoy living next to Bill. And I would just hope that from the last time we brought this issue up with the chicken, I noticed that a lot of regulations has been amended, and thank you for that. And I know that you guys are considering also some of the things that you're doing. And I just want to point out that I have an acre. A lot of people don't have an acre, and they would also love to have chickens. I would hope that you would take that into consideration. I also know that a lot of people that have chickens, there are pets, and I think that's one of the things that people don't understand. We just don't eat chickens. My chickens are just our pets. My kids actually named each one of them, all 16 of them, and they have names from Jane Austen's book, Pride and Prejudice. And honestly, I can't remember all the names all the times, but you know, they love to point it out to me and say, "Hey, Dad, do you remember this one? Do you remember this character, Dad?" And I kind of shake my head and say, "Yes," because I honestly fell asleep during that movie, even though I read the book a long time ago in high school. But I just want to say that, you know, there are pets. We take very, very good care of them. They're in a coop. My kids enjoy the fact that we did our research before we got them. You know, we built the coop from videos on YouTube when we had the plans, and my kids helped me build the coop many summers ago. And, you know, we oversized everything, and I'm thankful that you mentioned the actual square footage minimum per chicken, because we never want to make sure, you know, that we don't want to squeeze them in, basically, right? We want to make sure they have enough space, enough food and water. Thank you for those regulations as well. I just want to mention that my neighbor has ducks, and what if he decides to have turkeys? I just want him to enjoy his life on his property, right? My chickens honestly don't go into my neighbor's properties, which is interesting because I've heard different testimony here tonight. And I just think maybe just because they felt that that's their territory, because they're very territorial. I have just hens, and we just use them for the egg production. I love sharing the eggs with the neighbors. And I love, honestly, going to Sugar Grove, Pennsylvania to buy the chicken feed from the Amish. They have milk corn and tri-layer feed that I bring back 400 miles, basically, and I bring back 100-pound bags because I'm very, very careful of what I feed my animals. You know, and I want them to live a long, healthy life. And just like how people have dogs and cats on their properties, and sometimes they might run over into my property, and my chickens don't mind. They love to play with my chickens. They love to play catch, apparently. I don't complain about it, you know, and I just know that, you know, we live in a community, and I just know everyone here is concerned about the permit fees and, you know, remembering to file that on a yearly basis. I just, you know, just hope that you would consider just maybe dropping that, maybe just a one-time registration would be enough. And that's pretty much it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Right.
Thanks everyone for coming out tonight.
Others? Going. Okay, sir.
How you doing? Scott Hook up in Bell Road. It's already been mentioned several times tonight, but I agree with what the last gentleman just said, that the permit, I believe, should be free, with just a one-time registration, save time for the town and the residents that need to apply for it. I also believe that some things should be looked at a case-by-case basis, like the gentleman who owns a half an acre and has chickens and ducks. His neighbors all love them. They're not bothering anybody, and I applaud you guys for putting this in and allowing us to keep our chickens, but I still feel that, like, I'm happy, I can keep my chickens, but it sounds like there's several people here that would be restrained with their smaller lot size than 40,000 square feet, so I'd ask you to maybe have something in there that looks at it on a case-by-case basis. In terms of the noise, it sounds like there's a lot of people here who value the roosters, and it's true everything that I've heard. When we did have our rooster, he died protecting the rest of the flock. They're showbirds, all that stuff. If their neighbors aren't complaining, if it's not bothering anybody, maybe when they apply for this permit, they should say like, hey, I'd like to keep a rooster. I don't know, somebody comes out and looks and says, or makes you fill out a thing saying, have your neighbor sign off. If they're okay with it, we're okay with it. I think that's the best thing to do for that. As far as the noise goes, my wife already mentioned, we have neighbors who have dogs that are 24/7. In the town code, it says barking shall not exceed 30 minutes. A rooster will never crow for 30 minutes straight. I'd almost say go back and change the dog law then, because 30 minutes is ridiculous. We can't go walking down our road without like 4 other neighbors' dogs. It's not a quiet walk at all. If you walked past my house a couple years ago when we had the rooster and heard the crow, you probably wouldn't second guess it. You'd just be like, oh, that's cool, you keep going. Chicken keeping is very time intensive. It's expensive, okay? I'm in debt probably like 30 grand for my chickens. I'm amazed that my wife lets me keep them still. My kids have grown to love them. They've learned about animals. They learned about breeding, reproduction, all that stuff. Saves me from a conversation maybe later. But it's all been good. And I'm so glad that all you guys came out tonight to talk about how you love your chickens and support this whole thing. My biggest worry coming out tonight was that I'd be here with just, a few people, but like my other neighbor mentioned, this sounds pretty unanimous that we all want this, with the exception of a few people. The last thing I'd want to add is I think that something needs to be in place that says you need some kind of like photographic or video evidence. I don't trust my neighbor, okay? I've heard a couple false statements tonight from her, and we have cameras all over our yard. So if there's a complaint, then I'll gladly show videotape footage of the time, whatever, but there's a 6-foot PVC fence that bisects our yard. So I don't know how my chickens ever got into her yard and dug up her garden beds, but I know that when this does go into effect, I won't be surprised if I get a call from Justin Noyes saying, I need to come over there. But I want to have something in place that says like, all right, you have a picture of the chickens or video evidence of when this happened. Yeah.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello. David Machia, Town of Lagrange. Not looking for immediate answers or back and forth, so here are my questions or comments. What specifically is the code that currently makes keeping birds a violation, misdemeanor in New York State? How many complaints does the town actually receive each year? How many have actually been enforced? And for complaints where there's property damage, that is a civil matter where neighbors have legal recourse without town involvement. So like vandalism, that thought process, but it's property damage. Has the board enlisted any of their own witnesses or experts for this public hearing? The town had about 500 parcels removed from the ag district just this year. So it seems that could happen at any time again. Is this permit per animal, such as canines, or dog permits required to be issued annually? I like the registry idea actually, along with the fowl committee that I've suggested, but it seems we already have a poultry commission, so maybe we can offer some outreach time for them, and they can maintain the registry and community education for us. The chicken law that the town originally proposed to us did reflect some language of other municipalities. However, it only took bits and pieces of it, and not the entire intent or purpose or the whole regulation. That might be why we have some confusion here. If all these people currently have birds, that would mean that they are all in violation right now. If the town is not enforcing that law, that which is not allowed is prohibited, then any violation the town pursues would be unequal enforcement, which would be a violation of the rule of law, which is equal rule for all. So although it's within your power, making this local law is technically unnecessary because you haven't enforced it in the past. As Councilman Robaco stated, the town of Lagrange is no longer rural, and I think it's due to progress like this. And I just want to say thank you to the community for coming out and trying to protect our property rights.
Other comments?
We had laws already according to him? I didn't know that.
Well, you can believe me.
Pastor knows correct.
Sir. Okay.
Sorry, I appreciate I've already spoken, but how does this work? Like you hear our thoughts today, you hear the variety of opinions. What happens next?
We decide what to do.
That depends, I'll answer that question in general. Laws are proposed, you hold a public hearing. We listen to the comments of the people, we consider what they said, and then we make a decision about whether, what we're going to do as a result of those comments. That can range from passing the law anyway, to going back and making modifications to the law based on the comments we've heard, to deciding not to do it at all. And what we're going to do will be determined right after we close the public hearing.
Okay.
I suspect will be nothing tonight, but we'll discuss that.
And is there any greater action that a society or the public can take to try and persuade you guys who have the power in a way other than what we've seen this evening? Like, is there something that could have been on your desk tomorrow or next week where you would say, okay, let's just put a registration in, let's put a law in that if there's damage at the neighbor's property, they get fined $300, and if there's $25, and if there's any form of noise complaint, then we can fine up to $100 if we find it palatable. 3 lines in the town code, done. Is there something that the society could give you where you would say, great, our people believe in this, let's sign it?
So it's, I would just say drafting laws is never that cut and dry. So you've heard numerous opinions here tonight. They're gonna take all the comments and they're gonna work on whether or not they want to, as the supervisor said, revise it or table it. Or I don't think the feeling is to proceed forward in the current form, but that's not. But there's never, you know, you're saying, is there one document I can give you?
I'm saying,
a petition.
How can your public persuade you of their opinion in the most persuasive way? Is this it?
I would say yes.
I would say this is the process by which laws are considered and reviewed according to New York State law. The process is to have a public hearing, let the people speak, and have the public, the elected officials who represent the people, listen to what they have to say and make the decision based on it.
It's been a pleasure to be part of that. Thank you.
You mentioned emailing, submitting written comments. Who would we email? How would we do that?
Oh, to the town board members, our cards are out there and with our email addresses.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion closed.
Second? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Carried. My recommendation is we not take action tonight. We've gotten a lot of information to think about. I don't consider our law in a position to be able to be passed at all.
I'll make a motion to that, and I want to.
No, we don't have to make a
Oh, we don't need a
motion.
motion, all right, great. And I
We
wanna
don't
thank
need a motion
everybody
if we were gonna
for
actually
this much
pass it.
input. This was one of the most important topics of the year, I think.
Appreciate it.
So
I
thanks so much.
appreciate all the, I appreciate the input. I appreciate the respectful way that people, spoke. And I appreciate the fact that you cared enough to come out and show up, honestly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, moving right along. No, we don't have any correspondence this evening. It's one up is consideration of 2 road dedications, which are related. They are 2 different roads in the Frank Farm subdivision, both of which are ready to be dedicated to the town. You have 2 different resolutions in here. I think you have a letter from Rennius Engineering saying that they're stating that everything is ready to go and all that kind of stuff. So, do I have a motion to consider or to accept the road dedication for Frank Farm subdivision phase 5 dedication C, and this is the acceptance offer of a cessation of utility easement. And do we have to do these separately, or can we do them together?
No, you need to do that separate.
Okay, so the first, do I have a motion for the first road designation?
Second.
All in favor? Aye, all opposed, carried. And do I have a motion for the second road designation?
Second.
All in favor? Aye, all opposed, carried. All right, next up is acceptance of the budget. In your package, you should have a single sheet that looks like this attached to everything. It simply outlines the changes taking place since the last time we discussed. It summarizes them all. I think the overall impact is it reduces taxes because it's adjusting revenues up 90,000 and adjusting expenses actually down $7,000. A lot of this has to do with finalizing minor items, like we finally got the final numbers for healthcare insurance and that kind of stuff. Do I have a motion to accept the budget?
I just want to make a couple comments on the budget.
Sure.
I've been hearing stuff going around that just so everybody understands, the budget and the levy are two different things. The budget for the town, the general fund budget, which is our town budget, and then we have our highway budget, for this year is $12,635,478. It has gone up approximately $480,000. That doesn't include the special districts, which we manage, which is another $3,627,000. The special districts are the sewer districts of the town, which are billed to those districts. So we manage them. In some cases, the county manages them, but we feel we should manage them, which we do, because obviously where they're gonna come, paints are gonna come to when their water or sewer's not working. So to clear that up, our total budget is $16,263,000. I've heard things posted last budget, we had a negative budget. Our budget went up approximately $500,000 also, but our fund balance exceeded what we had as a town policy between 25 and 40%, was it, Helen, if I'm not correct? So what we did was, we had taken a lot of extra money because of real estate tax, because of the COVID, you see our houses, were booming and all that. So we took that money, kind of had no choice, it was our own policy, which I don't really agree with anymore, because it's a 2% cap. And we bought all blacktop for the year, we paid for the trucks in cash instead of bonds, and we put quite a bit of money towards the budget. I'm not sure the exact amount, close to $1 million, correct? So we did not have a 1.9% increase last year. We actually had a negative budget, so on your tax line for the town, there was actually no increase.
So a slight decrease.
Right, it was a slight decrease. Now this year, we're obviously, because we couldn't spend that money, I could have saved it for this year. We are again below the legal tax cap, but the tax cap is a very complicated thing. You have an inflation rate. There's so many factors. Now, if we're not below the tax cap by law, we have to have
we actually have to vote to exceed the tax.
Correct.
Which
we
the town
did
is
not.
about.
So, but we have a huge credit from last year, because that's how the tax cap works. You get a percentage credit this year. So most of our increases, $250,000 of our increases of our $480,000 is just benefits and Social Security tax, all this stuff. We are going to look at mid-year, because you can't really do it in the middle of the, right now, to see if we can get better rates, or if they continue to rise, maybe we're going to have to, change our benefit packages or whatever. But this is what we're looking at, what we're facing for our increases this year. We are below the tax cap legally. Obviously, there's a formulation, but it's going to be, if I'm not, a little over 3% technically is what we're up, but we're legally below the tax cap still with our credits and everything. So in a sense, what's happening here is if I could have banked that money, it would have been 1 point something for the 2 years. But because our town policy says, and we had an audit, and they stated that in our 2024 audit, we already corrected the problem in 2023. Before they even gave us the audit results in 2023, we put the money towards the 2024 budget because that was town policy. So that's all I want to say on that. So that's where we're at. We are legally below the tax cap, and I'm ready to pass this budget. We did lower it about 8,000.
No, you didn't.
All right, do I have a motion?
Yes.
And do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
If anybody has any questions on the budget, they can contact any of the board members to talk with us.
All right, next up is presentation from Cornell Farms. You guys are on.
Would you like me to present over by the microphone or up in the center?
Probably near the microphone makes more sense.
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, with that, thank you, Mr. Supervisor, members of the town board. For the record, Dan Palmer with Putty and Fader on behalf of the applicant. Tonight I am joined as they're setting up over here by my colleagues, Michael Bodendorf of Hudson Land Design, as well as Ben Gargiulo, who's coming in just now, and Neil Bahaba, who is our farm director at Titusville Farm. As the supervisor said, we are before you this evening in connection with our continued review of the applicant's request to amend the town zoning code to remap the Cornell Farm premises into two new zoning districts. And for the record, we have about 2,000 chickens. So these requests have been submitted to the board in furtherance of the applicant's pending applications for site plan, special use permit, and open space cluster subdivision. I know there are some new members, so I'll give a very brief background for the benefit of those with us tonight and those in the public. We're proposing to expand the existing, again, it's also referred to as Cornell Farm, farming operations on the western portion of the premises, and the development of a residential open space cluster subdivision on the east portion of that property. For the benefit of the board, the planning board did complete the SEGR, or the environmental review of the project, back in October of 2020, when it was issued a negative declaration finding that the project at that time, which was a much more involved project, would not result in any significant environmental impacts. The planning board also granted preliminary subdivision approval, and that was in May of 2022. As part of that approval, the planning board and town staff requested that we appear and propose these town text amendments to codify the project as reviewed by the planning board. Following an initial 6-month review with various members of town staff related to our appearance before your board, we did formally submit a petition to this board in June of 2023. We subsequently had site visits with members of the town board and staff from the town, and then we provided updates to the petition at that time, back in November of 2023. We are now pleased to be returning back to you all this evening with additional project reductions for the farm operation on the west side of the project related to the agritourism use and the structures for your consideration, and Mike will certainly walk through those in just a minute. Specifically, just so I can highlight some of those, while we did provide you a supplemental submission, we also provided one directly to the planning board, who will be asking you to refer this matter to this evening as part of the amendment process. The project has been revised to remove the farm table restaurant component, the educational event space, the pavilion buildings and space, and in addition to consolidating publicly accessible cidery space into one building. So what you're seeing in front of you is a comparison of the prior site plan and the proposed site plan. Again, Mike's going to walk through that in just a minute. This adds to the previous reductions, which we had responded to the town board's comments. That included removing the coffee shop building and also eliminating consideration of a creamery for this property. Although that wasn't a request of the town board, that was just a reduction of the project as we started to sort of really understand what the metrics and how this farm operation is going to continue to work and be successful. For those, again, who didn't have the benefit of being here during our original presentations, the original proposal did include 7 publicly accessible buildings and structures, a farm market, a cidery event space, farm-to-table restaurant, coffee shop, educational event space, and pavilion. That was the original proposal that has been dialed back significantly, again, to respond to comments from this board and again throughout the process. Taken together, these project changes do represent a notable reduction in size and scope of the overall project, again, which received a negative declaration for all of those uses that were just discussed. To reflect back on what's before the board this evening at a high level, pursuant to the town's preliminary subdivision approval and the town's open space cluster subdivision regulations, we're requesting that the town board remap the property, again, which is on both sides of Titusville Road, which would, excuse me, result in the town, where we're presently zoned in the town's residential flexible density district. It would create 2 new zoning districts, the Cornell Farm Residential District, which is again the residential component for the open space cluster, and then the Cornell Farm Agricultural District, which is the farm operations side, there on the west side. As we detailed in our submission, we are proposing amendments to the town's Schedule A2, which is the non-residential districts, which has been updated to reflect, again, these project provisions. So what we submitted to you is really the same thing that you saw a year ago. It just has more reductions and items removed. In our most recent submission, in our exhibit B2 for those keeping track at home, Schedule A2, the non-residential districts were also updated. So that includes those uses that are permitted on the west side specifically. So the east side, the residential hasn't changed at all. The west side, we reduced the uses that are permitted. Again, we just went line by line of all, we used the town's existing code and went line by line of all the uses that are generally permitted and identified those here.
You mean the east, you mean the side with the houses are gonna go?
The residential hasn't changed at all. All of the bulk regulations were reviewed by the planning board.
Well, right, yeah, obviously, because, okay.
It's only the west side.
I haven't reviewed this, but have you, basically, you came to us with this on the 11th hour, through your whole 5-year process, that is your legal open space from the development, just so people understand that, correct? Your farm is your legal open space for the development that you have to, but you're allowed to legally farm that because that's part of the permitted use for open
You
space.
mean on the east side?
Correct.
Yeah, on the east side, there is some open space that's there.
No, I'm talking about on this side.
Well, there is also open space on the west side, yes.
Right. So did you give me, so basically, you're allowed to do that under ag law, and you've stated that since day one. We have no issue with that. Obviously, you're in front of the town board instead of the planning board because you want us to make some changes to the law. Still, what I'm saying is, have you listed for us?
Yes.
Because it keeps changing. Have you listed for us what you feel is not under the ag law protection, where you don't even need to talk to us, what above and beyond you want? Have you listed that for us?
We have listed everything, including what types of menus or other products, what's grown on the farm.
But I mean, have you given me a list to say this is not covered under ag law?
So no, again, this is just to clarify and distinguish. Presently on the property, farming is permitted.
Oh, I know that.
There's no definition of farming, there's no.
Yeah, but there's ag law standards. What I want from you is, because this keeps going on, is a list of what is not permitted under ag law that you want from this town board. That's all I
So
want.
all that's being proposed is permitted under New York State ag markets law.
Then why are we here?
Everything on the west
West side, correct. We're not
that
saying
you
the
were
east side.
proposing with that
The east side is
plan.
already permitted as an open space cluster subdivision. There's no
Right.
regulatory changes.
Okay.
It's just being created as a district pursuant to the town's open cluster laws. I'm sorry, Mr. Stone.
That's okay. Just to clarify, the current proposal, the one on the right in that picture, for the west side,
Yes.
you're suggesting that all the uses being proposed are permitted under New York State ag law?
Correct.
Okay.
So what we're.
That's what I want to know, so you just clarified. I don't need anything. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
So just, I'll sort of expedite these points.
And just to remind the board, if you look at the one on the left side, I think the consensus, that wasn't true with the previous proposal. You may not have agreed with that, but there was a consensus among the town that at a minimum, that was debatable.
Right. So Michael walked through what it is. It's a cidery and a market right now, and I just have a few other points just to update the board about where we've been with the planning board and for the record.
That's fine.
With that, the remaining permitted uses relate to our active farming operation and other uses that are reasonably proposed on the premises at a future date. So the proposal that we include here, any uses that are in that table that I was just describing, if they're not part of the application, would have to go back either before your board or the planning board. There's just, again, you asked us, rather than creating a use, we just laid it out as the uses that are in your table, so as to not have to then add, not permitted or permitted in every other district. Again, I noted that the bulk table and use regulations have already been, that's worked out with the planning board through that process. So at our October 23rd meeting with members of the town staff and of the board, we did prepare a narrative that assessed the type of, and I just mentioned this sort of in brief, but I just want to sort of elaborate a little bit of what's in your packet, of what the anticipated raw and finished products are. So we had a real itemized list of quite literally how many pounds and thousands, everything that's going on, on the site and what's anticipated for the sale, a menu of the goods that will be at the market over the next couple of years. as we continue to grow out. For example, planting of strawberries and berries is going to take some time for those to come online, but we've already planted over 5 acres of apples. As I mentioned, of course, we have thousands of chickens that are out there laying eggs. And my new favorite phrase from our meeting was the meat birds that we're working towards. We're not there yet on the site. So with that, the intention sort of to go up and sort of Vasco's point is the applicant intends to predominantly use the goods produced from the farm to service the agritourism uses and sustain the farm operation on the premises. I mean, it's all consistent with or pursuant to agri-markets law, but again, that's the premise here and why we provided those lists to you, was so that you saw exactly what we're doing on the site and how that's going to apply directly into the uses that are on the site. So it is worth reiterating that for the purpose of clarity for zoning, we did have discussions with the zoning administrator, the planning board regarding the property. So, again, this is to avoid any future conflict that might be presented by future amendments to agri-markets law, right? The state regulates and sort of controls the field. We talked tonight about what's permitted under agri-markets law. That can change. It can be more, it can expand.
You do realize that hasn't changed in 20 years.
Well, with all due respect, they have updated regulations with regarding to wineries and distilleries and other components that have become, again, policies of New York State to promote those uses. Cannabis, for example, other things that are evolving as the regulations do. So what we're actually trying to do here, this would allow the board and the town to actually have more, have regulatory authority or consideration over what had been identified as a concern, being able to not have any zoning enforcement issues later over these specific, sales and items that we're talking about at the market. The intent was to try and say, this is what we're doing, we're putting it all out there, here's our menu, quite literally, here's what we're doing, so that there's no ambiguity and zoning enforcement wouldn't become an issue down the road. So lastly, as I mentioned, the planning board has recently approved various components of our agricultural equipment and ag operation that's on the site, including a seasonal farm stand that was approved.
Under ag, that would comply with ag law.
Exactly. Right. Yes. So we appreciate that the planning board was able to do that because we have a lot of farm employees and others that are there on the site, of course, active farming, and it allowed cover crops and others to really get working. And as mentioned, we're irrigating, we're growing apples and tons of vegetables and flowers that are being distributed to farmers markets and local restaurants, including the applicant's own restaurant in Beacon, which is soon to be coming online and really utilizing a lot of this directly. But this will allow a direct ability with the market, and that, of course, that temporary farm stand is temporary. It's to be there until a project is approved with a formal farm stand that would sell it there throughout Westchester, Dutchess, and Putnam. So we are eager to proceed. I am going to have Mike just, I think you're visualizing the changes, but Mike can now speak to the buildings, what they're for, and how limited the farm operation use is over what had been initially contemplated.
Taylor? Okay, so on the left, you're looking at our plan that we submitted to your board back in June of 2023. Color coding here, generally, the green represents just farm operation buildings in terms of food houses, storage buildings, chicken houses. This is a farm operations building. It probably shouldn't have been colored purple. There's that. Here's all of your public use buildings. Cidery, event space, pavilion, farm-to-table restaurant, farm market, educational event space, coffee shop. Vast parking to the below it, a large cul-de-sac. We had a pavilion, amphitheater. All of those are reconfigured or gone. Now we have all of our farm operation buildings, cidery and pack house consolidated into one building, storage building, chicken house, propagation, hoop house, and these are all just hoop houses with open floors or ground floors. I believe that 8 of these hoop houses are now constructed. I think the 3 short ones are still to be constructed. And our public use buildings will be the cidery and event space and farm market here, and here's the seasonal farm stand. Small parking areas for each building. We have overflow grass parking here, and we have employee parking along this farm road here. That's generally it. This opens up all this area to farm, U-pick, all different kinds of uses. We do have a graphic here that shows what's being currently grown here, if you're interested in looking at that. There's a 2024 Google Earth photo that shows a lot of the farming that's actually taking place here. And it does show that these buildings have been built. I think it was probably from around May or June, maybe, of this year.
Can I ask a few questions?
Sure.
You mentioned the green building at the top of that, and you called it a cidery. You also said the purple one down below is a cidery. Is it safe for me to assume that the one at the top is where you're making the cider, and the one at the bottom is a tasting room, kind of public access kind of facility? And the other large square purple building next to it is what again?
This one?
Yes.
Farm market.
And that's, the distinction between that and the smaller farm stand is what?
So the farm stand is to be used seasonally now until approval is granted for this and the farm market is built. And when the farm market is built, I assume you're not gonna be having the farm stand.
Does the farm market comply with ag law right now or no?
Yes, the farm stand and farm.
No, the farm market.
Farm market does as well.
It does?
Yep.
Okay, so I think I got that. The farm stand is there now, and once you have the big farm market, you're not gonna need that. Okay. And the farm market that you're proposing will sell some combination of products, presumably, some of which are produced on site and some of which are not.
Primarily.
Since you said that it is going to comply with ag law, it's safe to assume that somewhere in the vicinity of 51% or more will be produced on site, right?
Yes, and what we've highlighted specifically is the ability, for example, to sell pizza, the toppings will include vegetables and other things that are from the farm. So, you know, there was
Gotcha.
that, right.
Yeah, I guess my take is this simplifies our review and approval process by a huge amount. I mean, we could make the case that if the right side is entirely permitted under ag law, there's no reason for you to be in front of us in the first place. Because we don't have the ability to not approve it.
Right.
And so, as I understand it, what you're looking to do is to codify those uses in such a way that should ag law fiddle with that, you're still protected, right?
That would be the way of characterizing this.
Yeah, in a sense, it comes down to, do we want to police it, or do we want ag law to police it?
And if I may, the zoning administration.
Yeah, there's advantages and disadvantages.
Correct.
Either way, actually.
Right.
Okay.
Listen, we've come 100%, you know, you guys, I mean, probably could have had McDonald's with your first proposal.
And we had.
You got childcare in there,
that was
just, you know what I mean, so,
Right.
you know, we'll take a look at it, I guess, we
Yeah,
just gotta,
I mean,
we haven't even peeked at it.
It is to give your zoning administrator and your enforcement officials the ability to, you know, have a list.
Let me ask you something, the farm market, how do you expect to be assessed under ag law with no taxes?
Well, so they're separate sort of issues, they're different statutes, but from an ag and market perspective, we are a farm operation in a county ag district. So each year we have to file annual, but that's $10,000 for,
Right, which means basically your
Sales.
restaurant, which you kind of might be pushing the envelope because you're worried about the state, is gonna be a tax.
Well, there's no restaurant, right, you don't have a
Or
restaurant.
it's gonna be a grocery, a market.
And not a grocery, yeah.
All right, we'll look at it, but it's obviously come, you know.
Yeah, this is directly
200% change.
Again, the board presented its concerns,
Right.
and they tried
Okay.
to do everything.
I appreciate
Look at it.
the effort.
Yep.
And if I may, the only request that we do have this evening, and I certainly confer to council, but is to potentially refer, well, our position, you know, somewhat kind of something we're talking about tonight, is that this is not, because this is a planning board referral to you, that it doesn't need to be referred, but I think for all intents and purposes, we've submitted it to the planning board, you know, sort of at the same parallel. To you also, we'd ask that this matter be referred to the planning board for it to be, this law and the revisions be referred to the planning board for comment. I mean, again, it's a significant reduction, but again, it's ironic that it came from planning board to you to be referred back to them, but It is a zoning amendment.
For those of you who are not necessarily following this, let me explain what he's saying. The town law says that when we are considering zoning changes, we are required to refer that to the planning board for their comments. The point he's making is, since this proposed thing is coming from the planning board in the first place, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for us to refer it back to them, because we're at some point we're playing ping pong. And I think that's the point you're making.
Yes, and your code will.
And I think the code actually provides for that. So I didn't know that until we mentioned it in our last meeting, and I went, really? Because I'd never really stumbled across that before. But this is an unusual set of circumstances.
And the planning board has been surprised about this throughout, because we've had to reappear for agricultural equipment discussions. So they've seen, sort of the iteration of the spoiler of the reduction, because we had to include the temporary farm stand so that they could, and of course, the hoop houses, the congregation buildings.
Something being referred from the planning board to our board for us to change zoning law associated with the approval of that project has probably happened 3 times in the last 30 years. It's an unusual event. So that little chunk of the code that you're referring to is not something I've read or paid any attention to. So I appreciate it. Okay, thank you.
Just for purpose of procedure clarification, does the board want to refer us to planning, or are we saying that referral is not necessary? Okay, so.
I don't see any reason for us to have to refer you back. That doesn't make sense.
Then the last request I have of you, Mr. Supervisor, if I may, is if the board would be comfortable setting a public hearing, whether it's January or otherwise.
Not until I review it.
Yeah, I would say no, not until we look.
I gotta look at it, I haven't even looked at your details.
Okay.
So at next meeting,
we could discuss that.
Okay, so we'll speak to the clerk with respect to coming back for further consideration.
Sounds good.
And would it, promise the last question, I know the chickens are getting hungry, is whether or not you would like to have any type of work session in advance of, again, maybe that'll come out of the next meeting.
I don't know, until we look at it.
We'll discuss that.
You've got all details.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
Right.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes our agenda for this evening. Is there anything in general that the council wants to discuss at this point? No? Do I have a motion, anything from the town attorney?
So, I realize it's been a long evening, but I have been reached out by, counsel regarding a settlement proposal on pending litigation, and I'd like to have the opportunity to discuss that briefly with the town board in executive session after this.
Okay. An attorney-client privilege.
Attorney-client, yes.
Okay. We have a motion open for public comment.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Public questions or comments unrelated to chickens? Actually, you can make it against chickens if you want to, because that was the technique. Yes, sir.
So my name's Richard. I've been in forage for 7 years. I think that most things were addressed this meeting about the chickens and the law that was proposed. One thing I wasn't really addressed by anybody that was here to suggest was the population of chickens that were keep in the residential area. I know that it says 18, but I was
That's a maximum number, yes.
Yeah, I was wondering if, for example, you had a permanent building, something that's over 10 by 12, if the population be increased based on the size of the building instead of the,
How many acres do you own? How many acres?
2.5-ish.
So you're saying it was on the special, okay, I understand your concern.
Yeah.
So
It's
you're
also,
saying-
it's
Got it.
mainly like down the line, I'm gonna be owning my own property, but it's probably not gonna be above 7 acres, to be honest. And I probably want to keep more than 18 chickens, so.
What do you keep chickens for, just curious?
Shell.
Shell?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And
4-H?
Yeah,
Okay.
4-H.
That's important, okay, 4-H is important.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I got that written down.
I'm Jennifer Hunt, and I'm speaking speaking on behalf of State Lagrange, and just as, I guess I have a question, the Bryan Family Farm water permit status is on the agenda, am I allowed to ask a question about that?
You sure can.
Okay, so I did submit on behalf of, State Lagrange, comment to the DEC on the water withdrawal application 12741. But I guess this is more of a question than a comment. I was surprised to see that, going forward with the DEC, when I couldn't find anything in our code that said this was a permitted use. So I was just curious about, we had a lot of discussion about the asphalt plant, about chickens tonight, about permitted use and the necessity for legal use as a property to be listed in code. Could you answer? Or
Sure.
Let me know
And
how
we
this
might as well
fits
talk
in
about
there.
this now instead of, yeah. The DEC issued a notice, issuing that the permit, well, the DEC permit for that well. But it, the notice contains the following sentence. It says, granting of this permit does not relieve the permittee of the responsibility of obtaining any other permission, consent, or approval from any other federal, state, or local government which may be required. Our town zoning administrator, as well as the town attorney, has made it clear that that well is not a permitted use in the town of Lagrange, irrespective of whether the DEC issues the permit. So I think that's the answer to your question, is that it is not in fact a permitted use and therefore can't be requested to be a permitted use because it's not in the use table and it isn't a permitted.
Thank you.
And that has already been clarified to the person who applied for the permit.
Okay, thank you. It's the position of State Lagrange that we have concerns about the use and the impact to our water table, so thank you. I
Understood.
appreciate that.
Yep. Other comments?
On the water.
Well,
Must I go there?
You don't have to if you don't want to.
Yeah, I can do it right here.
Yeah.
Joe Lombardi, 469 Rossway Road, town of Lagrange for over 45 years. Love the place, drink its water, and I would like to think that the water that I extract from the aquifer will be there. I understand as an item on the agenda concerning a well to tap that aquifer and use that water to sell to those who want to fill swimming pools. I find that unacceptable. A swimming pool is a place for pleasure. A well supplies a necessity. And I would not want to have my access to the aquifer that lies beneath us tampered with to satisfy the pleasure of individuals in their pools. There are any number of ways to get water to fill swimming pools. Tapping an aquifer in this town is not one of them. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Other comments? Sure.
I'm sorry, Mr. President.
No, you're good.
You're good to go.
We're good. Thank you.
Hello, David Machia, Town Lagrange. You said 469 Rossway, that's over by that Peterbilt, little Peterbilt, and the horse trailer you got over there. Is that a permitted use to have a commercial or industrial
I'm on
trailer?
the farm.
But is that a permitted use in the RLD? Because I didn't see that as a permitted use, but it doesn't seem that it's being enforced. And it doesn't seem that chickens are being enforced or anybody with a commercial trailer is being enforced against. And on the aspect of the water, I just learned that the town of Lagrange had to increase the water, the well for town center. I don't know how many gallons now you're gonna be pumping out of the town center area. I guess that's kind of why there was a stalling of town center, but because you didn't have enough capacity for well water and sewer, but now it's been increased. And that's may be great. I don't know how far the aquifer really reaches to you in Rossway, or even from him on Rossway, but it would be great to see that the fire department can actually utilize these sources, because apparently they can't use a lot of the fire hydrants that we think are there for the fire department, but they're actually just they're just flushing points for the wells. It's a good device to protect the well tap. But from what I can see, that permit, and I read it, it got approved, but it looked like that was part of his business. It's already been used for like 10 years, so it's
Without
not,
a permit, yeah.
So it's not like it hasn't affected anybody yet, and it's not going to affect you now. It's always been pumping like that, and there's a lot of businesses that do pump a ton of water for use. It's not just for pools. There's a lot of construction sites that need the water to keep the dust down. Farms use water to keep the dust down. Big tankers. So it may seem like maybe he's taking the water from the source, but the way it works is it's the water above the ground where you are that's going in. He's not pulling from your water. He's miles away. So that's what I got. Thank you.
Any other comments? Sir?
Dawson from Rossway Road. I went to a state meeting in Department of Extension many years ago, determining wells. And they were looking to monitor wells in certain areas, so they could check for pollutions and stuff like that. It came out that there's no way to know what's below 200 feet. How much water is in the aquifer, all right? How long it will last. They had no idea, after a series of questions, pinned them to a wall, all right? Any well could affect any other well, all right? No matter whether it's 20 miles away. And what they were trying to get at is, if there's pollution in one well, who should you sue? Well, you don't know where it's coming from. Again, it could come from 20 miles away. It could come up all from Pine Plains. The system underneath the ground, we have no idea, all right, what's happening. When I was at 180 feet down, all right, I lost water a lot. I had to go down to 500, 600 feet to get water. And now I know wells are deeper than that now, all right? So we don't know what's being sucked out. So I want to make sure as much water as is possible is in that aquifer. So I don't know when you're going to make the decision on this one specific case. And you could broaden it for other cases, that a residential well should not be commercialized. If you have an opinion of when this will be settled, we appreciate it.
As I said with the first person who commented, it's already been made clear that the town's position is that is not a permitted use. So from my perspective, it's already settled.
So there's no more pumping on that well?
That's correct.
Can I speak?
My name's William Hungash. I live like 3 or 4, maybe 5 acres away. Same horizontal plateau. So to his suggestion, it would affect me. We have no way to get any kind of municipality water there. I'm already down 590 feet. And I do have, once in a while, a well problem. So I don't need this is not a personal thing. But to pump out 100,000 gallons per day, as they're requesting, is a bit much. I mean, you think what a household uses a day. So you to be under contract where you can take out $100,000.
We did it for a year and a half.
Okay? And we already went through this. It hasn't been for 10 years, like someone said. This has only been going on with the Gilmore trucks for maybe a year tops.
2, I think it was, almost 2, last
Okay.
December, right?
All
It
right,
was
so,
2 years.
I mean, it's not right. I mean, we live in a neighborhood, in a hamlet. He has a permit for mining, fine, have at it. He has a bed and breakfast, fine, have at it. That's all what he did. I have no problem. But to affect the wells, that's a bit much, to extract that much water every day.
Understood.
That's okay.
Other comments? Motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close.
For public comment.
Comment on the statement.
Do I have a second to close the public comment? No, you can't make the motion and,
Oh, I'm sorry.
you want a second? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Carried.
I just want to say that the couple of statements were incorrect. Town Center is 800 homes and 50 businesses, for example. It took the developer 4 years to get that permit and studies. So it's going to provide water for 850 residents and businesses, not one person. That's the difference.
Just affects the people the same way.
That's the difference. And it took 4 years to obtain.
Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Yes.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
I don't. I agree with you. I agree with you.
And 100,000 gallons a day.
It's not exempt.
But it'd be worse if they put in a neighborhood.
That would be worse, right? It doesn't happen, okay?
I know.
Yeah, well, they.
100,000 gallons,
Yeah.
but 100,000 gallons a day.
We got to go in the neighborhood discussion.
That's the distinction between going into.
The mine already. All mines have. My job is actually employed by. I'm not working for Belfast. I actually work for mines. They all the time have.
That's not being able.
Listen, he's been doing it illegally. He does everything illegally.
Clear the building and all that.
So, you know what? Screw them.
I got
I didn't know you were here for the same thing. Thank you.
I'd be more worried about the polluting the water than taking the water out.
You don't have easement to do it. I did all the time. He didn't tell me.
Did you read that you run out of water?
No, he's not. No, but we have
We were at, I think we were at.
Yeah, for what? No, it doesn't say that. You tell me.
More like caretakers, so. Well, hey, this year? They do. My comment is where are the guys who's
They're going home.
Have a good evening.
Take care. I just got locked the door. I'm out of here. I just have to ask you, just so I can lock the door. There's no executive.
I know.
It's done.
As long as they're here, though, it's still a public meeting.
No, it's all done. It's all done now.
Oh, you're in attorney-client session?
Yeah.
Okay.
Public meeting's closed.
Yeah, it's all done. And I'm locked in the door.
She passed away. She was a day short of her 90 years.
Yeah, attorney-client session voids all open meetings law. Most people don't know that. I only learned that recently.
We were friends for Yeah, Gardner, that's right. Her last name was Gardner, she was down the town of Gardner. Spelled differently though. So it wasn't a Russian. She sure as hell could.
Or you're on a beat somewhere.
You coming along?
Yeah, it's
We're
all
clearing
done.
the building now.
It's all done.
I'm just waiting for the camera to get out of here.
I think he's in the back. But you can,
That's actually a good point.
Yeah, good point.
We don't want that in here.
Yeah, I
what's
bet you
that, the town camera?
No, that's just a, that's the person who took my right to vote away. Rabasco over there told this guy to take my right to vote away. Good thing I got to vote though. Just took me an extra hour.
Are you gonna have a session after the session?
No.
We're done.
Nope.
No, we're done.
And I'm going home, so.
Just my official complaint that Mr. Rabasco's got trailers on his property.
Care about your complaint.
Okay.
You can-
I'm just making it
You
publicly.
can go out in the parking lot and see if you can find somebody who cares.
So you may submit
Yeah,
an email to
you
the
got
zoning
it.
administrator.
I'm going to.
Yeah, don't open the can of worms.
Well, when I
Go
spoke to
ahead.
her the
Fine.
other day, she was not aware of any complaints.
So somebody else has done that. I haven't sent her any emails.
Well, I think the veracity of those complaints is limited. She's been advised to take the drive on.
I mean, if it's not
Yeah,
the
you're
resident
done.
of the town, who cares?
So the dumpster's filled with construction debris and toilets. That's all allowed?
The meeting's over, sir.
You seem to be confused about whether anybody cares about.
Meeting's over.
Oh, okay. I mean, our supervisor doesn't care about toilets and dumpsters
Go ahead.
on a
He's got
property.
his.
I
Thanks.
see him.
No one cares. Just get out.
It's good that the people know that our supervisor doesn't care.
I don't care about you.
Yeah.
Everybody, we're gonna lock up in the later, say how.
We're members of the American Hospital
It wasn't too bad though. That was a good one. Nice.